What's going on, guys? We are now live. So in this Q&A, I wanted to talk about a topic that I've looked into for the past couple days, and it is I'm going to be answering the question: is jumping genetic? There's going to be parts into, but I just wanted to start off by saying that the purpose of these Q&As is, if I haven't explicitly said it before, it's just to learn more about jumping, and really anything that has to do with jumping, and then eventually, expand on into other fields, whether it's like nutrition or other things related to jumping or health, or really just anything that I could learn about and talk about on these Q&As with you guys. Um, that's just what I wanted to kind of cover first off, and also that the purpose of these Q&As is not to be right about any of these topics, not about proving anything or disproving anything. It's just about starting a conversation with you guys and talking about things I looked into and research I did beforehand, and again, bring it about with you guys and talk about it. So I'm going to start off by answering the question, but first, it looks like there's something going off the screen. One second. Um, okay. If there's anybody in the live stream, let me know how the screen looks on your end, because it looks like it's kind of flashing on my end, but all right, but yeah, so I'm gonna get into answering the question: is jumping genetic? If anybody sees that the screen looks kind of blurry or anything on my end, just let me know in the chat. But so the three parts of this question I'm gonna get into are specific genes that have actually been correlated to speed and power, and which I'm gonna expand on into jumping, but specific genes have to do with that, expression of those genes, and then the topic of adaptation and how that kind of relates to the question. So to start off, there are a couple of different genes that I found that have actually been linked to Olympic sprinters, for example, and that have correlated to more speed and power athletes. And the two that I'm referring to are It's called ACTN3 and PPAR alpha, which those are just two names of the genes. And I'm gonna get into both sides of this argument too, not just that jumping is genetic or isn't, or not that just jumping is genetic and is from these two genes, but that there's also a whole other side of this to talk about. But yeah, those are two of the genes I looked into and found that there's actually been studies linked um, to speed and power athletes. And then there's also the expression of these genes, which is basically these genes giving instructions for proteins to then function. For example, the ACTN3 gives instructions to sarcomeric proteins, and then these are associated with properties with muscle function properties, which is again why this gene has been found to actually be linked to speed and power athletes and um, specific muscle fibers in those athletes. And then there's the adaptation argument, which is that basically any organism can change genetically or change physically to adapt to whatever environment they're living in, or that they're putting themselves through in order to survive or just live easier in that environment. And that's going to be kind of one of the big things I talk about in this Q&A, because the adaptation part is really interesting to me. I guess it'd be like nature versus nurture. It'd be like the nurture side of that, because it's hard for me to just completely 100% believe that something like jumping or strength or anything like that would be just 100% genetic. But yeah, so I'm gonna get into the rest of the topic right now. Sorry, guys. This flashing is really bothering me. I can't tell if it's something that's just going on. Um, one second here. Let me try to close out and reopen it. Okay. There we go. I think it stopped. Sorry about that. If any of you guys are watching and saw that, um, that flashing on. It's good now. The screen's good. But yeah, so after talking about those, or after looking into those three things, just defining kind of those terms, um, I'm now going to get into like a summary or like a brief overview and kind of combine all those things together. LeBron James 23, what's up? I'm going to just kind of combine all those things together. Oh, this might be why. Switching Wi-Fi really quick. Okay, yeah. So now I'm just going to combine all those things together and kind of talk about what I thought about after looking into those three things. So I kind of wrote like a brief, like a summary of this because I just wanted to kind of collect my thoughts before actually talking about this. So after thinking about the specific genes, expression, adaptation, those three concepts, I applied it to my own life and kind of how, like I just thought through kind of how I've gone through being able to get to the vertical and athletic ability, I guess you could say, that I'm at right now. So basically, I'm actually gonna bring in some other people who commented on my story on Snap or on Instagram and talk about kind of like what their take was on the question too. So I'm gonna bring in their viewpoint as well. But after thinking about it and applying it to my own life, I kind of so like the way I started off was, I was never like super athletic. I was like 100, probably under 100 pounds in 8th grade. I was super skinny, probably the most uncoordinated kid on my AAU team. Um, barely made freshman high school basketball team. Like all this, I had like all these things starting off that you would look at and say, like, this kid doesn't look like he has very much potential to get a 40+ inch vertical or dunk a basketball or whatever um, kind of correlation you want to make to like some type of athletic ability like that. But I feel like one attribute that I might have had the longest is being strong. So, I mean, I was always in the weight room. I started working out when I was like 12, 13 years old. Even before that, just at home doing stuff like just in my living room, like body weight type of stuff, like core work. I would just have like I just always had a fascination with just being stronger. So that's kind of where I started off at my youngest point, and then from there, I just kind of started to slowly become, more athletic. I just continue to get stronger, faster, and then eventually just, got more coordinated, and it's kind of led up to where I'm at now. But I just don't. I just from my own experience, from my own life, from that beginning point, I just don't. It'd be hard for me to say that the ability that I have now to jump is 100% based on genetics, just because where I started at was I could only literally I can only imagine that one day I would be able to dunk. There was no way in my mind back then that I was like, okay, like seeing guys at my age on my AAU team, dunking in high school or before that actually, and me being really uncoordinated and not being able to jump that high at all at that point, it was just hard for me to 100% believe that I would be able to dunk one day until I started to actually just put in the work to be able to dunk. So yeah, it was just kind of kind of how I thought about it and apply it to my own life. But let's see, jumping is definitely genetic, just like running or any athletic movement. But genetic in terms like so if you're saying that jumping is definitely genetic, what do you mean? What do you mean when you say definitely genetic? Like that if you weren't born with certain genes that you wouldn't be able to move a certain way, or like what? Elaborate more on what you mean by saying jumping is definitely genetic, just like running. But yeah, so I thought about that applied to my own life. Um, yeah, so that's just thinking about it in my own life terms. It's hard for me to just 100% accept that a healthy person that would have the ability to put in a lot of hard work and time and effort into something like jumping, that they wouldn't be able to improve or get better at it over time. Sorry, I'm just waiting to see if he answers in the chat. Um, it could be that somebody has an earlier start, that they start with sports at a younger age, or they start with certain movements or certain like coordination or core work or certain routines that might help them at a younger age make it easier to work up to dunking a basketball or increasing their vertical or becoming a better athlete. I just think that there might that the argument might be that maybe there's a certain point where people just think that this is it, so at that age that they just kind of stop working, or they think that, it's too late to put in this amount of work to actually get to a point and, dunk a basketball or get a 40 plus inch vertical or whatever it might be. I just think that there's all that time, if you start off at a younger age, that you've already built like a strong foundation, so that way when you're in your later teens or early 20s, that it seems like it's easier for you at that point because you've already had all this built before that. So I feel like maybe that's one argument that could be talked about and applied to like the is jumping genetic question. Um, let's see a row here. It could be that someone. Yeah, and I also just don't believe in putting a cap on human potential and just saying that, that there's just a limit to there's like an age limit or a certain limit, a certain point in your life that you get to, and you're just like, and you just say that you can't reach a certain point in athletics if you don't, because I just like, again, I'm gonna talk about the adaptation side of all this, because I feel like going by that definition of adaptation, change, some kind of change in an organism that helps them adapt to whatever environment they're in. So if you make the argument that I'm going to make here is, if your environment is jumping or getting better at dunking, then that's the environment that your body is going to adapt to. That's the way I look at it. Because, okay, I'm going to start over. So I'm going to make the argument with adaptation, because if if you've built that foundation beforehand, then it's going to make it a lot easier to um, it's going to be a lot easier to argue that, okay, that this looks like that this person might be more genetically blessed and it's easier for them to get to a certain vertical. Whereas if you take somebody who might not look that coordinated, or might not be that coordinated, um, they might feel like they might feel like genetically they have things going against them, which is kind of how I thought about it at a younger age. Is that, oh, I'm just not genetically blessed like these people at my age that are already dunking, or that can already jump really high, or that are super athletic. So it's kind of like a downer for me, until I just kind of put all that thinking aside, and did the vertical jump program I did for 7 months straight. And then after that 7 months, it was like I had actually adapted to something I couldn't do beforehand. So that's where my argument of adaptation comes in, is because I just don't see that you could 100% say that something like jumping is 100% based on genetics, when you can take somebody and work with them, or they can, work themselves for an extended period of time and adapt to the environment that they're putting themselves through. So that's why I don't believe that there's like a limit on up to, if that makes sense. But I'm going to take the example. I'm going to go back to the gene example now. So there are three types of that ACTN3 gene, which is the gene that's been correlated to like speed and power Olympic athletes. There's three different types. There's an XX version, RR, and RX, the gene, and there's been a correlation found, like I just said, expressing. So if somebody expresses the RR or RX version of the gene, then that's linked to greater power and speed athletes. Whereas if they have the XX version, it's been shown to correlate more with endurance athletes. So in that way, it may be indicating somebody that they may tend to um, favor more speed and power movements. Or if they have the XX version, maybe it's more endurance. They're more of an endurance athlete. However, this is just kind of my thinking about it. I'm not sure that I would just accept that the way it is, because um, again, because of adaptation, like the endurance, that the person that has the endurance pair of like the XX version, who's to say that they can't adapt actually change their genes to become either RR or RX? So I'm not sure that if when they took these tests on Olympic athletes, if the RR and RX version showed because those athletes worked with speed and power and sprinting, or if those athletes were born with RR, RX, and that then made them more inclined to work for speed and power, which I could see it both ways. But I just don't believe that if you, like, say you're born with the RX version or the XX version, which would indicate that you'd be a better endurance. I just don't believe that couldn't be changed by training or adapting to more of a speed and power pattern of movement, such as jumping or sprinting. So basically my closing like thoughts on this whole thing is that, and this is the other side of the argument that I was reading just yesterday and just before this, is that those two genes, the ACTN3, which is one I've been talking about most here, but the PPAR alpha gene, that those two genes, even though they might have some kind of link to muscle, like muscle fiber, um, or speed, power, or endurance, that these would be one or two of thousands of genes, um, and one or two among many other genes and factors that may correlate to being able to jump high or run fast or have great endurance or not have great endurance. So maybe it's better to focus on the nurture side, the side that you can more or less control, and see how far you could take it and set, just in your head, setting a limits for yourself, so that way you could you can continue to progress and take that potential as far as you could take it. So that's just the way I would look at it, because I feel like it's just really hard to sit here and say that just because somebody is born with these, maybe just taking these two genes for example, just because somebody's born with an RX version of the gene. And actually, one of the articles I was reading, they said that there was an Olympic athlete who had the XX version of the ACTN3 gene, yet is still an Olympic high jumper. So I mean, that's an example, kind of goes against that argument. So I mean, I feel like it's just hard to 100%. I feel like it's just hard to pinpoint with genetics and say that just because somebody is born with, one or two specific types of genes, that they're going to end up this way, or they're going to be more inclined, or that they're going to be a better jumper, or a better sprinter, or a better marathon runner, or whatever you want to link it to. I feel like a lot of it just comes. I feel like it make that maybe the genes set a foundation, but there could still be a strong argument to creating an environment that might go against those genes that you're born with, so that way you could adapt and become more skilled in whatever skill you're working on. But yeah, so I'm gonna bring up a couple different inputs and takes that people answered on Instagram about this question. So Cammy Dunks also said that he thinks it's 50-50. He said, take a look at Jay Lapuz. He said he started out with only a 20-inch vertical and said he wasn't very athletic, and now he's around 45 and was like 5'4", 5'5". And I was saying, like I've looked up Jay Lapuz and I've seen how he jumps and stuff, and I said people like him make it hard for me to believe that it's all strictly genetic. Um, and Cammy said, yeah, I don't think it's all genetic, but I certainly think it helps. Then he said, mine is genetics. I haven't done any training in the weight room, but my vert is 34 to 35 indoor. And then I said, have you jumped a lot, played any sports, or did anything relatable up to now? And he said he was naturally fast, and he has also jumped 3 to 4 days a week with rest in between sessions. So I feel like somebody like him, he might have the genes to be more inclined to express more speed and power. But again, I just don't believe that necessarily means that he wouldn't be able to become an endurance athlete if he just trained and put himself through an environment that would force his body to adapt to becoming um, better at endurance. And then Vero Sanchez, he said maybe, but it's a mix of height with work. Um, and he said, just imagine you're vertical with the height of an average basketball player in the NBA. And I just thought that was pretty crazy because, again, like they would have the genetics of height in that instance, but then again, we might have the same vertical. So in that way, you could argue that genetics would play a role because that person's taller if you're talking about being able to dunk a basketball. Let's see, one more. Brunette IJ97. I think anyone can achieve a 45-inch running vertical with hard work, but over that has got to be gifted. And I said, good point. Will you um, be on the live stream? But yeah, like that's kind of the way I think about it. I just think that if you put in the work and if you put your body through the situations to become better skilled at what you want to achieve, then it's hard for me to believe that it wouldn't happen. Um, and strictly believe that it would just all be because of genetics that you couldn't get there or could get there. Because like I talked about expression, like if you have certain genes that may help you be a better jumper, if you don't work to express those genes, so if you don't put your body through situations to help you express those genes, then who's to say that you would actually ever get to a point of you'd actually get to a vertical that you'd want to get to if you didn't actually put in the work to get there. So that's why I don't know. It's like I said, this isn't about proving or disproving any type of science or anything. It's just creating an argument and having a conversation about it. Dunks with Nick. Will do, man. Cac Fogel. Hey, what's up? Jesse said, "Hey, bro, I'm 5'3". Can I dunk?" I believe you can dunk if you, again, like I've been talking about here this whole time. If you stay consistent, if you put in the work, if you continue to put your body and challenge your body, and continue to progress with the training you're doing and with jumping, then I believe you can get there. But again, it's going to take a lot up to that point and a lot of consistency to not stop at points where you might feel like you're failing or that you're not making any progress. I feel like that could be a whole nother argument with adaptation, is that maybe people don't ever get to the point of, say they want to reach like a 45-inch vertical. Maybe they never get to that point because they get to 40 and they feel like that's it, and then they don't work after that, or they feel satisfied with the 40 and they're like, oh, like I don't need to get to 45, and then they're easier, or they stop training, or they stop challenging themselves, whatever it might be. That could be a whole nother argument. Cammy Dunks. So I've been on here for a little while. It's been like 25 minutes. Yeah, so now I'm going to answer a couple other questions that I got from the week. One of them was from Steven Selly. Shout out to him if he's watching. The Dunk Life. He asked me in the last 9-7 low rim session I had. If you guys haven't seen those videos or anything, I've been working on a 9-7 rim to just improve my windmills and dribble dunks and stuff like that, just to continue to get better with them. But I haven't tried Eastbaying yet on that rim, because I feel like with Eastbay, I need to work on my technique on a lot lower rim first before I even try to do it on 9-7. So Eastbays are going to be coming soon on that 9-7 rim, but I'm going to start to work on technique on an even lower rim, just to kind of work up to that and get the technique better. But the windmills on 9-7 have definitely been feeling easier lately. So once I start, especially like once I start flushing those consistently, then the next step is going to be getting those consistent on 10, and then working with the Eastbays from there. And then I got another question. Oh, let's see. LeBron James 23. I'm 5'10" and 14 years old. He can dunk. That's great. Sorry, I'm just thinking about that. No, that's awesome. But like, so LeBron James 23. What have you done up to this point that you think helped you dunk? Like, have you played basketball? Have you played sports your whole life? Have you done any type of like weightlifting training, jumping? Have you just jumped a lot? Have you just worked on dunking a lot, or oh, how long have you weightlifted for? He's working on 8-4 East Bay. I'm super close to it. That's awesome. Keep working at it, man. I don't even know if I could East Bay on 8-4 yet, to be honest. My technique is just hair is I just try to put terrible and horrible together. It's awful. Definitely got to work on it more before I even attempt it on any higher rim. Cammy also had a question from earlier this week. See if I can find it here. He asked, "What would you say the ideal amount of time to work out for?" Um, so I think like the ideal amount of time to work out for is around like 45 minutes to an hour, depending. Um, but I just say that because I like to warm up for at least like 15 to 20 minutes, like doing stretching and mobility stuff, like dynamic warm up type of stuff. And then after that is when I actually get into my workout, which is like 30 minutes. So I feel like it just depends on like the gym you have, like gym access you have, or if you're working out at home, it could be different. But yeah, I feel like just getting a however long you work out for, just making sure that you get some kind of dynamic warm up in, and then moving into um, your training, but not overdoing your training by doing too many reps or anything like that. Then like that's the ideal amount of time. Rest days in between like workout day, like especially if you're playing basketball too, just allowing for rest days either in between days that you're playing basketball and lifting, or like lifting and dunking, just allowing your body some type of rest in between active recovery or stretching or something like that in between. LeBron James 23 said 7 to 8 months. So do you think that's what helped you the most with being able to dunk, or were you also practicing like your technique and stuff during that time that you were also weightlifting? Again, if you guys weren't watching at the beginning, um, I really wanted to say this explicitly in this Q&A because I don't know if I've said it explicitly before in any other Q&A, but the purpose of these Q&As is not to like prove anything right or prove anything wrong, or like say that what I'm saying is right or the research that I've done is just, it's 100% right. It's just to have a conversation with you guys and talk about it because, I still like I do these because I want to learn about these topics and I find them interesting. And, I want to talk about them with you guys and hear what you have to say, not just sit here and say like this is the only way it is, or, just say what I have to say and not also hear from you guys. So that's why I like to talk about this stuff with you guys, because I just like to create a conversation and hear your guys' input on topics like these that there could be different sides to them. So that's why I like to do these, and that's why I'm saying this, because I don't just want I don't want anyone to think that I'm doing these and just I think is right. Because really the point of these is just have like a continuous, like just a continually learn about these topics, and then maybe later on down the line talk about it in a different way that I didn't today, be either from learning more or talking about it with you guys or other people or whatever it might be, having some or interviewing somebody like I did with the CNS, the CNS Q&A, just doing things like that to continue to grow from these. Jesse said, "How many times are best for us to do the squat in each week?" Um, Well, that's a good question because I recently have well, I haven't squatted in a couple weeks because before, if you guys saw the Florida video, before going to Florida, I actually retweaked my back from trying to do a PR, and after that, it just like made me think, what's the point of really doing these heavy squats, like trying to go for these heavy PRs if I'm just going to injure myself from it. So I've been kind of rethinking the whole squat and weight. I guess been rethinking how much weight I should squat with, or if I should squat at all. Um, because there's like been people that have said, putting a heavy weighted barbell on your back is too much pressure on your spine and all this stuff. So what I might start doing is starting to work with lighter weight and just doing it faster. So like doing the 30% max power that I've talked about on here before. That's been shown to, or it's been correlated to max power output working with 30% of your max. So that's what I'm probably gonna end up doing more of, is just working more speed. Um, but if you're asked, like you said, to answer your question, how many times is best to squat? I would say probably no more than twice a week, and then allowing time for recovery, and then also working upper body explosiveness in that time too. I mean, there's different squats you could do as well. So I don't know if you're talking about just one squat, like one type of squatting, or what, but in different types of squatting, that'd be good too. What's up, JP Vert? Cac Vogel said 1 times a week, 1 hour of plyos, 1 time a week, 1.5 hours of heavy strength and complex of every exercise with depth jumps. Oh, Peter, what's up? Is this a new channel, JP Vert? Cac Vogel did that for 8 weeks and baby windmill today with sore legs. That's awesome. That's kind of like how my training is too, Cac Vogel. He said 1 times a week at 1 time a week, 1 hour of plyo. So I just did a plyo workout 2 days ago. And then before that was my strength or contrast day, and then which also included depth jumps, like he just said. So it's kind of how, I mean, similar to how mine is, I guess. Zuggy778, how long did it take you to get from rim to dunking? I'm at the rim right now, and it feels like a solid ways away. Yeah, so to get from the rim to dunking probably took me like 5 months. I started the flight right program. That's about the point I was touching rim. So I would say about 5 months before I got like my first like baby dunk. And then 7 is what I consider like the first real dunk I got. But yeah, like depending on how consistent you are with the workouts and everything, it could seem, it could be closer than you think it is. So just keep working with it. And again, if you're having periods like going through plateaus or anything like that, just really look at the type of training you're doing. Look at like, really focus on how much effort you're putting into your training. Are you pushing yourself with jumping? Are you working on technique? Just looking at all those little things that might get overlooked before just saying, maybe I just won't dunk one. Maybe I just won't ever dunk, or maybe I won't reach this vertical, or whatever you're working towards. Oh, Peter, that's awesome. I'll check it out after the Q&A. JP Vert. LeBron James 23. I squat heavy and focus on quickness, and I jump a lot. You guys, and I jump a lot. You guys do that too. Yeah, I'll be dunking. Yeah. So LeBron James 23. When you say that you squat heavy, like do you squat? Like how many reps do you do? Like how many reps do you do when you squat usually? Because that was like another thing I was thinking, and I talked about with one of my friends, is that when you're squatting super heavy, it's a very slow movement. So really, you're not training quickness by squatting really heavy and moving it really slow. So is that the most efficient way to squat? I don't know. Squat if you're trying to increase speed and quickness, and running vertical like I'm training for, then maybe that's not the best way. Maybe that would help with a counter movement jump because um, you're just working in that like that vertical motion. So maybe that'd be better for that. But shout out to Pierce Wells, just joined the live stream. What's up? What's up, Pierce? Yeah, I covered the genetics part at the beginning. Do you want me like I could just do a quick summary of it real quick if you want. Peter, did you try the form I have in any of your dunks? Oh no, I was gonna do that the next dunk session, Peter. Which I think the next one I'm gonna do is probably tomorrow on that rim. But yeah, I'll try the form that you did. James said, "How do I get great jump days constantly and how do I get great jump days constantly and would know what days?" Well, James, to know what days, I mean, to know what days would be your best jump days, that I feel like would have to just be you kind of following along day to day how you feel when you jump, and then basing it off of what you did earlier that day, maybe what you ate that day, how you slept that day, going through things like that. Like I've done experiment videos if you want to check them out that kind of go along with your question, like how do you know what days are best to jump or not? It's really just getting a feel for how you feel that day and keeping track of that and then going from there. But I mean, I guess how do you get there is just allowing for recovery, getting adequate sleep, not eating heavy or anything before you go to jump or anything like that. Um, yeah, and just keeping track of how you're feeling, I guess would be a big one. Cammy said, "What's your PR touch? Mine is 10 foot, but I haven't jumped inside for a couple weeks." Cammy, so my PR touch would be like, let's see, 10 8 or 10 9. That's my PR as of now. Peter said James McDonough is here with me right now in person. That's awesome. Pierce said a summary would be awesome. All right. So basically, Pierce is like there was two sides I wanted to cover with the genetics argument, and that is that jumping is genetic, and that you can also adapt and increase your vertical or become more explosive, be quicker, jump higher, whatever through adaptation. So basically, with the genetic side is that there's two specific genes that I found that actually have been somewhat correlated or linked to people to speed and power athletes such as like Olympic sprinters, and there's ACT3N, I believe it was, yeah, ACTN3 and PPAR alpha, which those two have been linked to like switch muscle fibers, proteins proteins that are linked to these speed and power athletes that help them function as more of a speed and power athlete. But the other side of the argument that I was talking about was adaptation, which is that just because you're born with these genetics, that if you put your body through specific environments, so basically, so just to define like what adaptation is just like putting your body through certain situations or through an environment and becoming more fit for that environment. So basically what my argument was with adaptation is that just because you're born with these genes doesn't mean that you can't force upon an environment that would force your body to adapt and be more fit for whatever you're putting it through. So I kind of correlated that to jumping. Like if you want to increase your vertical, then you're gonna well, jump more. You're gonna work on like the technical side of jumping. You're gonna do weightlifting that would have a benefit to jumping. You're gonna watch jumping videos. There's so many things that you start to do to create an environment that would help you become either a better jumper or become a better dunker. That it's hard for me to believe that just because you're born with specific genes that would be like an end all be all, and that it's a like 100% predictor of the destiny you would have as an athlete or runner or just human in general. So that's basically like a quick summary of like what I talked about. And then I talked about how I kind of correlated to my life and how like I didn't start off, I was like 110, I was like 110 pounds in 8th grade. Like probably was the most uncoordinated kid on my AAU team in my like teenage years, and then in high school I like barely made the high school team and all this stuff. But yeah, so I was just like I was never the most athletic, and people wouldn't look at me back then and say that, oh yeah, this kid's gonna dunk one day. It was just something I had in my head, and then work towards that. But that's just one example. Um, those are the two sides that I talked about. Peter said, "What's the best workout for explosive jumps?" Well, Peter, that's tricky, but I feel like jumping is the best workout for explosive jumps. Doing like max jumps, like trying to go for something that you can't reach yet, but maybe you could get 1 out of 10 times. I feel like that would be the best workout for if you strictly want to work explosive jumps. 10-8, 10-9 that Cammy just asked me about, like what's my max touch. Um, that's probably like that's the highest point I could reach as of now. But when I first started, I got it like maybe I probably got it 2 times out of 15 times, but now I could probably get it, like 5 out of 10 times or more than that. So it's just about working up to getting consistent with like with a point that you can't reach yet or that you could barely reach yet, and training that explosiveness and power. Fergardi, what are the best exercises to help increase your vertical with not too much equipment? Oh, Pierce said very interesting. Thanks. Yeah, anytime, Pierce. Thanks for joining the live stream. If you have any other questions, let me know. I could talk more about it if you want me to, but also, I mean, on my Instagram, I'll also post like a summary so you could see like more of the bullets and stuff that I talked about on here. But Fergari was saying, what are the best exercises to help increase your vertical with not too much with not much equipment? So um, you could do like skip hops, you could do bounding, you could just use like sprints, depth jumps. But probably the best, like one of the best ones would be depth jumps. So that's if you can set up some type of box or something that's like 60 centimeters, and then step off and explode off the ground after stepping off. Like that'd probably be the best one you could do. Um, or again, working max jumps like I just talked about with Peter. Um, yeah, those are like a few that you could do. Frog hops, burpees, just to start off. Like if you have no equipment, those would be probably the best things you could use to help increase, or best things you could do to help increase your vertical if you don't have access to any equipment. And then also like doing core work, like just like planks, or like if you have like a stability ball, like you could use a stability ball. But again, if you have no equipment, then like planks would be probably one of the best for core, like all around core strength. But I'm gonna go through again and see if I have any other questions from the week that I got that I wanted to answer on here. Oh, Kapur said he asked me what's my vert now. I haven't tested, like I haven't retested like a PR vert in a while. Well, since I got the 10-8, 10-9 touch, so I guess it'd be going up from there. So that'd be the next max vert test I do. Peter asked, should I get lean muscle to jump higher? Well, my take on that is you could think about it 2 ways. I mean, it just depends. I feel like that more depends on your strength. Like if say you weigh, if you're 160 pounds, like I'm 160, like 62, 63 pounds. So I feel like more optimal at this weight than any other weight because I also feel strongest at this weight. So, if you feel like you could put on weight and become stronger, then that's not it wouldn't be a bad thing to put on weight. But if you feel like you're at a weight where you have sufficient strength, then just keep working, keep working with the weight that you're at right now, and then just continue to get stronger and push yourself. But yeah, lean muscle would be better than putting on fat if you want to continue to get stronger. For guard, he said, "Thanks. So far, I have just been doing lunges." Yeah, I mean, those are good too. Like jumping, you could throw in jumping lunges for like a more ballistic type of movement, explosive push-ups, stuff like that would help too. Cammy Dunk said you should try some over object dunks soon. That's a good idea. I'll definitely think about trying some of those. I feel like I definitely want to get this get the windmills consistent, and then get the windmills consistent on 10, and then after that, maybe start doing some over object stuff. So Jamin, he asked me, "Is 22 too old to begin a dunk journey?" And I mean, just from what I talk about in here, I feel like 20. I mean, I said 22 is not too old at all. I mean, I'm 21, so definitely don't feel like 22 is too old to begin a dunk journey. Just as long as you're consistent and stick with it. Don't think you can't do it. Oh, it's also asked full box too. He asked me what shoes I wear when I dunk outside. There are like a couple year old Nike Lunar Glide 5s, if anybody else is wondering. They're just really light and they have some support. I really don't. Jumping on concrete's not my favorite thing, but um, they're pretty good. They're not. I mean, they're not bad for jumping outside. Let's see. Dunks for Christ. He asked me, "How did I do that underwater video?" I actually had a GoPro, so that was the first video I've ever done with a GoPro. If you guys saw that one, that was the underwater workout. I actually might do that one today for recovery. Lapod, go get that 50 inches. Okay, yeah, that's pretty much all the questions that I wanted to answer on here. If you guys have any other questions in the chat, just you guys could ask them right now, because I'm gonna end this live stream in a couple minutes here. Go through and see if I missed any questions. Yeah, so really, so talking about like the genetic and um, the genetic question, I guess, is like I just feel like it's an easy out. I mean, it's an easy way to quit if you want to just say that jumping is genetic, and that then that if you've been told, or if you're at a point right now in your life where you feel like genetics is the only thing that's keeping you from jumping, and then you just quit and never work up to that and never work past that point, then I mean, you're never gonna know if you would have put in the work, or if you would have put in the time and the effort, if you would have ever got to your goal, or got to you know like a point that you might have wanted to get to, but you let like this genetic argument or out just get you down, and you didn't work, and you didn't work past that. So like I mean, I say that, and I'm like, I talk about that kind of strongly because I feel like I was at a point in that where I just felt like genetically blessed enough to get there, but I've put in work for, I mean, you could say years to get to the point I'm at now. So I just don't feel like it's 100% set in stone to say that genetics is it, and then you can't do anything past that. So yeah, I think that's where I'm gonna end this live stream though. Cac Vogel said, "Keep up the good work, bro." Later, Cac Vogel. But yeah, I'm ending the live stream here. Thank you guys for watching. Stay tuned for live. I'm gonna do a live stream dunk session tomorrow on Instagram. If you guys want to check it out, it's just at LikeMikeBarrins. Um, Around like 1 or 2 p.m. Eastern USA time. I'm gonna do that tomorrow, and then more workout videos are gonna be coming up, and then I'm gonna be back at school. So stay tuned for some stuff to change in my channel because I'll be back at school. So gonna be switching up the schedule, doing like a little bit different videos. Might go back to those experiment videos, but Cac Vogel said depth jumps help you cheat genetics. That could be an argument. All right. Thank you guys for watching. I will see you guys later.